Hey there, Cosmic Warriors, and welcome back to another video. And if you are new here, my name is Hannah. I'm a Western practical astrologer. Okay, so today we are going to be talking all about the 6th house, 12th house axis in astrology. We're going to be making our way through all 12 signs, so stay tuned. Though, before we do dive into today's video, if you want to learn more about astrology, then head on over to the Cosmic Check-In podcast. And you can also pick up a copy of my astrology cheat sheets. They are available on my website, hannahselsewhere.com. And you can also book a reading with me by going to hannahselsewhere.com. Make sure to subscribe, folks, if you have not already, right, to keep up to date with more content from myself. There's a lot to come. And if you do find today's video to be helpful, give the video a like. Also, just to highlight here that there is an episode dedicated to each of the houses in astrology. Those episodes are episodes 22 to 33 over on the Cosmic Check-In podcast. So feel free to listen to those for more depth, more detail. Though what we are going to do before we move on to the signs is we're going to explain briefly what these houses are all about in astrology. Right, this axis is a major health axis. So the 6th house is so much about our physical body, right? Our physical health, our physical state, and potential health issues could arise physically. So we think about, for example, illnesses, potential illnesses, going to the doctor, getting a checkup, maybe having to go to A&E, right? So very physical. And the 6th house is also tied to our stress levels. If you can imagine times whenever you feel so stressed because you feel like you've been pushed beyond your limits. I know for me, whenever I'm stressed, my eye twitches, my left eye, it twitches ever so slightly. And a lot of that is, well, it's stress. But then the 6th house is also about the types of movements, exercises we can do to help relieve stress, to help us de-stress in a way. But we'll talk more about the 12th house next because the 12th house really sheds light on that. Yes, our stress levels, but then also our productivity levels are really seen through the 6th house. So your ability to get through the day, to maybe check off things on your to-do list or to attend to all of your everyday chores and responsibilities, duties, obligations. Life can get very busy. And we know this, especially in today's society. Plus, the 6th house is so much about our everyday routines then. So if you can imagine your morning routine, your evening routine, little everyday rituals you do. I even know for myself lately, right? So I've got a lot of activity happening in my 6th house. I've got Saturn, Sun, and Mercury in the 6th house using the whole sign system. And with Pluto recently entering Aquarius, coming into my 6th house, I have noticed that I've changed things quite a bit already. So I take collagen in the morning. I have my protein shakes after a workout. I'm taking iron supplements that have B12 in them, folic acid, vitamin C. So this is what we want to consider when we look to the 6th house. And the 6th house is also about detoxification. So if you think about even how much you eat or consume on a daily basis, maybe, for example, you realize, I've had a lot of sweet treats this week. I know I have a lot of sweet treats. And then you think, you know what, I'm going to try and cut back a little bit next week or just be a bit more cautious, right? There's that caution moving forward. And this can also then manifest in other ways when we think about detoxes. Naturally, we want to be mindful about this as well, because this is where we can get into unhealthy territory with the 6th house, you know? Plus, what I'm going to say here is the 6th house is about how we refine our skills, right? Imagine it like with the 2nd house, right? The 2nd, 6th, and 10th houses are part of the trinity of matter. The 2nd house, we may think, oh, well, there's a talent, there's a skill, I enjoy this. But in the 6th house, we refine those skills, we improve. The 6th house is a major house area of life related to improvement. And naturally, as well, it really shows up as our everyday kind of routines regarding even work and service. So that's the 6th house in a nutshell. Maybe I did explain that quite a bit there, but let's move on to the 12th house. What we see is the 12th house is so much about the bedtime routine, the sleep, right? So if you can imagine it like you are literally laying your head down on your pillow at night and you're going to sleep. You need to get sleep, you need to get rest. The 12th house is so much about us being in our sleeping state. It's so much about our dreams, the subconscious, our unconscious even, right? Really deep unconscious stuff. So if you can think about what your dreams symbolize, what your dreams try to tell you about your life, about what you're trying to process. Nightmares then can also fall under this house. The quality of your sleep can fall under this house, right? The very quality. So do you get enough sleep? Of course, this can depend on transits, maybe through the 12th house, right? So there could be periods where you don't sleep super well. There could be periods where you sleep a lot better. But then it's also about medication, okay? I imagine this as, so through the 6th house, we might go to the doctor, and then it's the 12th house arena that really steps in and says, hey, we've analyzed this, we've assessed this for you. Here's this medication, take this medication. But then the 6th house can also manifest as, do you take the medication? Do you keep up with it? Right? How likely are you to remember, for example, to take your medication on a daily basis? 12th house then is, yes, like I said, it's also about health. The 6th house, 12th house axis, health. But the 12th house is also largely to do with spiritual insights, right? So it's more about our spiritual body, our spiritual connection. We think about our connection with the divine, our connection with the universe, with God, creation, this type of stuff. And largely then, this is about your spiritual practices and rituals. So do you pray before you go to bed? Do you read the Bible? Do you read another sort of religious text? Do you maybe practice affirmations in the mirror before you go to bed? Think of these types of things. Do you maybe go to a yoga class a few times a week because you feel like that really connects you more so with your spiritual body? These types of questions arise. But I'm also going to say the 12th house, as it's often said, the 12th house is also about escapism. So in this regard, we do want to be somewhat mindful because we can run away from our daily responsibilities and our obligations. Then again, we also are reminded via the 12th house the importance of rest. This is why I've put deep relaxation. See, the 2nd house in astrology, I would also argue, is about relaxation or comforts. But the 12th house, it's a step further, a major step further. It's that deep relaxation, where your mind isn't even worrying or thinking or over analyzing. The mind is able to properly switch off. Think of it even as the 6th house is so much about that mental load, right? We can carry this mental load when we think about tasks and responsibilities. But the 12th house sort of steps in and says, hey, let me take that away. Let's let go of that properly. So we could do this via maybe going on a retreat, maybe going to bed a little bit earlier, taking a nice hot bath, by getting out into nature, right? There are many ways that we can get into that deep relaxation state. And we also notice intoxication, right? So detoxification with the 6th, intoxication with the 12th. Think about substances, drugs. I'm spelling it out for monetization purposes. Alcohol. So yeah, we might we see here that through the 12th house we can basically go to a different state of awareness, consciousness. And then this further suggests that the 12th house can show up as the type of person you are when you are under the influence. So that's a really fascinating thing to consider. Last thing I'm going to say here, because I have been talking quite a bit about this axis, but the last thing is the 12th house is about our hidden talents, right? So we said with the 6th house, refining our skills. It's very practical. It's very everyday. The 12th house steps in and says, what have you not considered yet? Are there any gifts that maybe you keep to yourself or that you hide or that you would like to let out, you would like to sort of showcase, but you don't, right? So it's hidden talents. Very, very interesting. But what we are going to do today is we're really going to focus in on how the 6th house is largely about our physical body, and then the 12th house is largely about our spiritual body. So that's the overview of this axis. I hope you find it to be helpful. But with that being said, let's get into the signs. Thank you so much for watching. Okay, let's firstly talk about Aries in the 6th house and Libra in the 12th house. With this particular combination, you could very well have a Scorpio rising. And as I do touch on the physical body, health stuff, I am not a health specialist. So please do not use this video as a way to diagnose yourself or anything like that. This is about guiding through astrology. Thank you. Okay, let's think about firstly, Aries in the 6th house. Firstly, what comes to mind is you tend to be very active people when it comes to the day-to-day. You might, for example, try to figure out the fastest way to do something, to speed through your work, but you're also going to do this efficiently. And so this is where you want to make sure that you get things right, you get things correct the first time around. Whenever things are not correct the first time around, I do see this as you getting impatient, you getting a little bit frustrated. And this could, for example, manifest as you getting annoyed or irritated by coworkers. So even if you working with other people, this could be where it's this whole attitude of get out of my way. Get out of my way. I know how to do it. I've done this a million times over. This is how you do it, right? It's this kind of attitude. You can be major leaders. This is where we notice that you need, in many ways, to take on a leadership position, because I'm thinking that you can possess a lot of impatience for people who don't know what they're doing. And you can take charge within a situation very, very well. Naturally, we also want to make sure that we're looking to the whole chart, because there could be other aspects, other placements within your chart that could point to something different. But with Aries in the 6th house, this is about you being a major doer, a leader, possibly even being your own boss, or this is about your individual efforts, your independent efforts when it comes to service. And when we think about your physical body in this way, well, this is where it's so important for you to be mindful. What I'm first going to say is being mindful of your blood pressure, because this could manifest as your stress levels, right? 6th house stress levels, your stress levels being at an all-time high. And so we can see here your blood pressure being impacted. We can also look at this as potential accidents happening at work or on a daily basis because of this impatience, because of this wanting to do things correctly the first time around, not having to repeat steps, but that can then manifest as accidents happening, falls, emergency services having to be called. Okay, so just to highlight there. And then I'm also thinking that what might be of a beneficial thing for you when we consider health and fitness, things like that with the 6th house, is to maybe try and do something to help and support your muscles, right? And that could be, right, it could be weight training, it could be running, it could be playing some type of sport, but we want to consider your muscular system here, possibly also your reproductive system when we consider health and the physical body. Now, as for Libra in the 12th, spiritually, okay, this is your spiritual body. What you're being called for here is to recognize balance. Balance. And to me, I'm really thinking that this is so important because if you do have a Scorpio rising with this combination, you might have a Scorpio rising, you might not, but we're thinking about whole sign with Scorpio rising. Scorpios are known for being very all or nothing, black and white. Okay, there can be the intensity. I'm even thinking with Aries in the 6th house, burnout. Burnout. Experiencing periods of fatigue because you're burnt out. You're so exhausted. You're so exhausted because you're constantly trying to go and go and go. But actually, Libra in the 12th is trying to remind you, and in combination with Aries, is trying to remind you of the importance of actually slowing it down, of being mindful in terms of how much you're doing, how much you're taking on, who you're committing to, what obligations are you taking on, what responsibilities are you taking on. What if you can let go of control to an extent? See, the hidden self here with Libra in the 12th is about refinement. It's about harmony. It's about peace, equilibrium. So this is what the spiritual body is trying to highlight to you. So I'm thinking that what can be of a good use to you here is you taking on spiritual practices that can help you reach that equilibrium. So I imagine this, for example, as you going for a nice coffee with your partner, you going for a donut with your friend, you going on a bike ride with someone, you're a relative of yours, right? Spending time with someone close to you. Or this could be about making sure that you go to bed a little bit earlier so that you're not as exhausted the next day. This could also manifest as taking your foot off the pedal, so to speak, so that you're not constantly running on overdrive, and then you hit a wall. Really, Libra in the 12th is a massive, it is a massive reminder of balance in your life. Thank you so much, Aries in the 6th house, Libra in the 12th house. Now we're going to talk about Taurus in the 6th house and Scorpio in the 12th house. So with this particular combination, you could very well have a Sagittarius rising using the whole sign system. And I also want to mention that I am not a health specialist. We are using astrology as a guiding tool. Okay. Right. Let's firstly think about Taurus in the 6th house. Well, this is where we notice that when it comes to your everyday routines and habits, you can be creatures of habit. You might actually prefer to have some type of stability in your life when we think about the everyday. There needs to be that comfort, that familiarity, and greater ease, right? Where you're able to, for example, regulate your nervous system, manage your stress levels, So times whenever you may feel like you are super stressed, right? So the 6th house is about our stress levels. You could maybe do a few practical physical things to help you calm down, to help you relax. So what I'm thinking about here is you connecting with your senses, possibly on a daily basis. So this could, for example, manifest as you needing to make sure that you have your morning coffee, right? In the morning, it's like, yes, I need my morning coffee. And it's really about you grounding yourself. That's what I'm getting from this. Or this can manifest as, you know what, I need my 10-minute break throughout the day so that I can go for a quick walk around my area, around my work. Or I need that smoke break, right? Hey, that could be a possibility here. You think, okay, yeah, I'm a smoker. I need 10 minutes. I need this cigarette because I'm so stressed. So basically what we're trying to get at here is it's about those familiar, consistent things that you do as part of your routine that can help you feel more at ease. Now, we also want to think about how, yes, this can depend on what placements you have, because I imagine this as with Uranus traveling through Taurus over the past 7 years. So from about 2018 to about 2024, 2025. If I'm getting the dates mixed up, it is what it is. But about that time period, Uranus in Taurus, yes, for those people, routines, habits, consistency, a lot more shaky, right? A lot more unstable. And even if you have this Sagittarius rising, Taurus in the 6th house, maybe you have noticed the inconsistencies when it comes to your very routines, and you feel a bit like, oh my goodness, Hannah, I've wanted those little things that you're saying, but it's felt impossible. Still, I am going to say with Taurus in the 6th house that when we consider how you show up, like work wise, you can be these coworkers, these colleagues who, well, you do try to be supportive, right? It's offering support, but you're going to know your worth, right? You're not going to push yourself too much here, right? You're going to be mindful of what your body needs. So there is this element of tuning in with the body to a large extent, which can be so supportive, so helpful for you. So you're not, for example, going to tolerate certain behaviors or actions from particular coworkers within your environment. That's what I'm imagining here. Plus, to consider this really from the physical body perspective with the 6th house, maybe this is where we gotta be mindful of your throat, your neck, your ears, so your hearing, your tonsils. Okay, maybe if you have struggled with your tonsils or with taste, with sound, with your hearing, because Taurus, you see, rules these body parts, also rules the mouth, the thyroid. So you know how we brought up that example of smoking? Maybe this is where we do want to show caution when it comes to smoking, right? When we consider those body parts with Taurus. But here's the thing. Whenever we look over to Scorpio and the 12th house, the spiritual body is very much about, it's about connecting with your soul. It's about connecting with deeper spiritual insights and allowing for yourself to experience transformation. And those transformations could be hard truths to swallow. Okay. So, for example, this can manifest as you allowing for a certain chapter to run its course instead of holding on, thinking that area, thinking that chapter is going to continue to offer you support. Maybe it's not. Maybe you've outgrown that thing. Maybe you've outgrown that job. Maybe you've outgrown that way of eating. Maybe you've outgrown that particular health routine or exercise, routine. You've outgrown it. And so Scorpio kind of shakes you and gets you to awaken to something that's very new. It's this whole thing of out with the old, in with the new. And throughout that process, it can feel like a part of you dies, honestly. It can be that intense with Scorpio in the 12th. I even, for example, for many of you, because the 12th house, Scorpio is tied to conception. This could manifest as motherhood, right? Motherhood or parenthood, completely transforming your life. And then that within itself transforms your routines and your everyday habits. Oh, and here's another thing with this Scorpio in the 12th house. It is about being able to look within and connecting with yourself on a more intimate level, a more vulnerable level. To me, this is interesting because if you have a Sagittarius rising with this combination, there could be a part of you that wants to run away from yourself, to run away from those parts that maybe are really uncomfortable to face. Like we were saying earlier, the 12th house can be about escapism. So I'm thinking with Scorpio in the 12th, a big, massive part of your spiritual journey is about being able to dig a little deeper. But at the same time, it's not about it's not about poking around and trying to find something, right? Either. It's not about trying to get to a particular core situation that only makes you feel awful and horrible, right? This is more so about vulnerability, addressing your temptations, addressing your weaknesses, addressing times whenever you can be actually quite controlling and you don't realize, right? You don't realize you're being controlling, for instance. Thank you so much, Taurus in the 6th house, Scorpio in the 12th house. Let's now move on to Gemini in the 6th house and Sagittarius in the 12th house. Okay, with this particular combination, you could very well have a Capricorn rising using the whole sign system. And I also want to highlight that I am not a health professional or specialist. This is me simply guiding using astrology as a tool. Okay, right. Let's firstly address this Gemini in the 6th house. This is certainly where we notice that when it comes to your everyday habits and routines, there is that variety. So you might change your surroundings, the atmosphere, quite frequently, quite often. You may find that you perform better, you work better in certain spaces and areas, or you may know whenever something needs to be changed, when there needs to be a fresh vibe, a fresh look. We also notice how you can refine your skills of communication, socializing with others. I imagine you, for example, being someone in work who can chat away to coworkers. You may not necessarily enjoy that, right? But maybe you think, well, I'm going to do this because it's part of the job, right? It's like, yeah, we're going to have to converse in some way. Or there could be some of you naturally who do genuinely enjoy communicating, chatting away to coworkers about their week, about their day, so on and so forth. Still, when we consider this house through a lens of stress levels, well, this is where we see, especially for you, the mental load you carry, and how you may have lists upon lists upon lists upon lists within your mind of all the things you need to get through, all the little tasks that need to be attended to. To me, this is interesting because if you have a Capricorn rising, Here, using the whole sign system, of course, Capricorns are known for being very responsible people. And from a very young age, it's that responsibility being reinforced, being placed upon them. And so I'm thinking with Gemini in the 6th house, this could be where we notice that mental load of all of the duties and tasks that need to be done. And I'm also thinking your amazing ability at being able to think efficiently, being problem solvers in this regard. So if there is a more effective way to do something, you're going to do it. And to confirm, we're just focusing on this Gemini in the 6th house again. And I'm also going to say this. This is where your stress levels too could, well, they could do with some caution, right? And what I mean by this is you could be quite nervous, jittery, maybe be mindful of coffee, how much coffee you have on a daily basis, because this could be where your nervous system is all over the place. I'm also thinking that this is where you got to be mindful of the thoughts you have and any reoccurring thoughts and patterns. Maybe this is where we could see you being quite scattered with your workload, with your productivity, and maybe you do go to see a doctor, you go to see someone to gain support for that. Or you know what, this could also manifest as you fidgeting a lot, or this can manifest as you distracting yourself quite a lot. For example, going on your phone. So these are certain ways that this energy can manifest. But I'm also thinking when we consider this through this lens of your physical body and your health, maybe something to consider is doing certain activities as a way to assist you with your mind. You know, I'm even thinking that certain games or mental tasks could assist you. So maybe penciling those particular tasks in throughout the day or during the week. Or maybe this could be about communicating with a friend, speaking on the phone, meeting up with a friend for a drink, for a meal throughout the week. And then that's a good way for you to communicate, for you to even in a way use friends as a soundboard, right? It's that kind of ability to vent, for someone to listen to you. And it's that opportunity to get the words out, and then that can even help you make sense of things better. So this is largely about your mind, right? With Gemini and the 6th. Plus, we also see Sagittarius in the 12th speaks to what? Speaks to freedom. The spiritual body is seeking freedom. The spiritual body is wanting to grow, is wanting to expand, is wanting to explore. This could literally manifest as you going more long distant, right? So whenever you do take a trip abroad or to a different destination, you go on vacation, you go on holiday, that stuff really activates your Sagittarius in the 12th. And in a way, it refreshes your mind, it refreshes your whole perspective. And so this could be where we see major mental shifts. So in actuality, travel, exploration, doing things even outside of your comfort zone, gaining knowledge, these things help you, support you. They almost bring you back to yourself in a way, right? They help you connect with your spirituality. Plus, I'm going to say again, if you have this Capricorn rising, this I think is why it's such a necessity, because Capricorn risings are known for their role, right? Their position of, okay, I have to be the responsible one. I have to be the one who looks after my family. I have to be the one who shows up within my business. I have to be the one who supports my pets, my animals, right? Whatever that responsibility is. So I'm thinking with Sagittarius in the 12th, this is where you need those times of freedom, those times of doing things that are not so responsible. Okay. And the last thing I'm going to say here is that this is about tuning in with your optimism and seeing the glass as half full as well, right? So the spiritual body is trying to remind you of plentiful, of what you do have rather than focusing on what you don't have. Thank you so much, Gemini in the 6th and Sagittarius in the 12th. Now we're going to talk about Cancer in the 6th and Capricorn in the 12th. Right, you could very well have an Aquarius rising with this combination using the whole sign system, and I do want to highlight that I'm not a health specialist. I am simply guiding using astrology as a tool. Okay, let's firstly think about Cancer in the 6th house here. Okay, this is where we see that when it comes to your everyday, your habits, your rituals, there is certainly a need, an emotional need. There is something very emotionally supportive and secure that your routines bring to your life. I even see this as you becoming very emotionally invested in others. So let's think about this. Any services you offer, any job that you work within, right? Any coworkers even you work with, you could become quite emotionally concerned or emotionally involved. And this could also manifest as you quite literally taking on a particular role. So we think about your working life here. So tasks, roles, responsibilities that include caring for others, supporting others, and being really, really kind, even kind, protective. And to me, I'm going to say it's interesting because if you have an Aquarius rising, Aquarians are known for being humanitarians. They're known for really being thoughtful, kind, and caring people. And sure, Aquarius as an archetype is much more intellectual and objective. But Cancer in the 6th house suggests that when it comes to services and working with other people, there is a deep emotional world going on for the Aquarius rising. And a lot of this, even too, is about experiencing cycles, emotional fluctuations. So let's put Aquarius rising to the side for a minute and just think about Cancer in the 6th. Yeah, Cancer in the 6th can manifest as certain days where you feel more like you can do it, right? Okay, I'm going to show up to work. I'm going to follow this routine. I'm going to look after my health in this way. But then there are other days where you may feel a bit moody, a bit grumpy, a bit like, oh, I cannot be bothered. I'm so fed up with this. Not today, not today. And yeah, we can all have good and bad days. That's the thing. We're reminded of that via the archetype of Cancer, interestingly. Still, Cancer in the 6th house says when it comes to your physical body, you do want to be mindful of really what your emotions are trying to communicate to you, right? So it could be this case of, I'm really not feeling it today. I'm irritable. I feel uncomfortable. I don't want to face this situation, or I need to retreat. I need to hide. Naturally, that is not always, that's not very realistic when we think about the actual requirements of work, for instance, right? But it's still about, to an extent, recognizing how you're feeling, honoring your emotions in some respects. I'm even thinking about, for example, whenever it comes to a certain health routine, or it could be fitness, it could be your diet. Maybe there's a certain day, maybe there's a certain week when you really can't be bothered. Or there is a certain week when you're so on it and you feel like, yes, I'm so capable, I've got this. And it's riding those emotional waves with Cancer in the 6th. Though, maybe something to consider, however, when we think about health and your physical body, could be your hormones, right? So your hormones could really play a role when it comes to your daily activity, your routines. We also want to be mindful then of your stomach, okay? You could have irritable bowels. There could be something about your stomach and maybe there's a knot in your stomach. There's also the gut feelings that you can get, or those sort of big reactions that you can get where maybe you even clam up, or where you need to move away from a certain person. That you can be very intuitive. You can be very intuitive, but I do think a large part of this is even trying to listen to what your stomach is trying to say to an extent. And yes, this could literally be about having a painful stomach, and maybe that is about getting that checked up, etc. But this can also manifest as more of those gut reactions that you get on a daily basis. Now, when we look to Capricorn in the 12th house, we actually see here that there's a big fear of failure. There's a fear of effing it up and getting it all wrong. Okay, there's this big expectation that you have about yourself. There are standards that you have about yourself, about life. But you see, the spiritual body is actually trying to communicate something to you about these particular standards. Maybe even the spiritual body can show up as firm limits, right? It's this firm limit of, no, I am not doing that today because I physically can't do it. Do you not see? I physically can't do it. So I think Capricorn really speaks to this part of you that should respect your limits, that should respect and honor your feelings to an extent. Okay. And to be even somewhat realistic about what you can actually do in the world. And to me, again, very interesting, because if you have an Aquarius rising, Aquarians are known for being the types of people who are like, I want to change the world. I'm going to make a difference in the world. I'm going to give it to my community. Right? There's so much of this over giving with Aquarians. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't necessarily give or be yourself. But what I'm saying is times in life, whenever that stuff is hindering you, right? Whenever it is causing you more pain, it's causing you more harm than good. Okay. I think this speaks to the Capricorn in the 12th. And it sort of says, let me slow down and let me really be realistic about what my goals are, about what my standards are, about what I can do within the world, truly. And then it shouldn't just all fall on me. It's this type of energy I'm getting from this. Still, what I am going to say is that on a spiritual level, very dedicated people. Okay, you're the types of people who are willing to get stuck in. You're willing to get stuck in and solve problems and be these members of authority who have mastered something in life. It could be a certain spiritual practice that involves self-mastery, for example. And you are here to be big changers of the world, or to facilitate some type of change within the world. And that is to be respected. And maybe that can even be where you're learning how to overcome imposter syndrome. You're learning how to push through these kinds of blockages to do with fear, right? We go back to the whole, the fear, or fear of being a failure, fear of getting it wrong, right? So it's this ability to, in a way, allow for yourself to soften within that, right? To be able to give this nurturing influence, this nourishing influence to yourself. Thank you so much, Cancer in the 6th, Capricorn in the 12th. Now we're going to talk about Leo in the 6th and Aquarius in the 12th. Okay, with this particular combination, you could very well have a Pisces rising using the whole sign system. And I do want to highlight that I am not a health specialist. I am simply using astrology as a way to guide today. Okay. Firstly, let's think about Leo. Ooh, Leo in the 6th house. Well, this is where we notice how you seem to make the everyday, the mundane, a type of performance. So entertaining. And this can manifest then as you, for example, singing whilst you clean. This can manifest as you making the most of a shopping trip, making it spectacular, finding joy. Okay, finding joy in the everyday. And we also see that creativity could very well be a big part of what you do, what your work is, the services you offer, right? You may be very creative in this regard, and you literally want to create. You may also seek to step into a role where you can lead. And it's not necessarily about leading other people. Of course, it could be, but this can more so be about directing your own life, leading your own path, using your own voice, expressing yourself, making your personal views and your personal expression known. Other people seeing you for who you are, for your authenticity. I'm even thinking so if we think about with Pisces, if you have Pisces on the rising, Pisces is known for being a very creative, artistic, imaginative sign. So it's almost like through the 6th house, you can bring your imagination to life through this Leo, right? This is where you get to play with the everyday. This is where you get to bring your visions to life through your art, through your creative projects. And there's that working element possibly, or it's simply about making sure that those parts of you are a part of your they are a part of your everyday routine and habits. Still, if we were to move away from the Aquarius or the Pisces rising, still to focus on Leo in the 6th, I'm thinking physical body wise, health wise, we want to be mindful of your back, so your posture. We want to be mindful of the spine here, also the heart. So, even thinking about your cardiovascular system, what type of movement do you do on a daily basis to help you with your cardiovascular system, to get the blood flowing through your body? And maybe there are many of you who do like to work out. You can be sporty. You do like to keep fit in this regard. But then again, maybe because this is Leo in the 6th, there could be elements of this where it's good to be cautious, right? It's good to be cautious, to be mindful of any lack of exercise or movement. Hey, like I said, I'm not a health specialist. There could be other factors in the chart that really paint a whole different picture. I'm just talking about this based on placements here with Leo in the 6th. Okay, let's then also consider how Aquarius is in the 12th house. So Aquarius in the 12th house suggests to me that your spiritual body is about being quite quirky, unique, eccentric, embracing your quirks, embracing the parts of you that may be considered odd, unusual, a bit out there, a bit different for other people's liking, embracing those parts. But then I'm also thinking about how Aquarius in the 12th can speak to healthy levels of objectivity and coming from a place of trying to see the bigger picture or trying to look at things more so from a bird's eye view. Because I'm thinking if you do have Pisces on the rising, what Pisces is often known for doing is Pisces can absorb, Pisces can lose itself within the other, within everything else, become one almost with everything else. So during times maybe when you notice that or you recognize that within your life, maybe Aquarius in the 12th can support you with healthy levels of objectivity, healthy levels of reason, or trying to more so come at things from this perspective of, let me think about that. Let me really consider what my individual views are here. And not just, for example, go with the flow just for the sake of it. And then I'm also thinking that because Leo is still in the 6th, that Leo can support with that individuality piece as well. Still, the spiritual body with Aquarius in the 12th house is more so about reinventing something. It's adding your unique spin. This is a really creative axis, right? So Leo, Aquarius, that axis, very creative. So I'm considering how a big part of your story when we think about your story through a lens of health, this is about what you can do for yourself creatively. So what I'm also going to here is, even though loads of could be, doctors, health practitioners, they're giving you advice, they're trying to get you on medication, they're trying to give you this, that, and the other. Maybe you're the type of person who's able to step back and you go, this is so outdated, right? The system, it's outdated. I don't want to follow these people's advice because they don't know my body. They don't know who I am. They've not walked a day in my shoes. This is really what's coming through here about this. And so you may be those types of people who you may prefer to do your own research. You may look to alternative medicines, right? You may look to other ways of moving your body. You're probably listening to me there and thinking, oh, you're saying about exercise, Hannah, but that's boring to me. Why would I do that? I don't enjoy that. Hey, this could be where you do something that's more aligned with you, right? So instead of, for example, going for a jog every day, as a lot of people do, you think, I'm going to dance. I'm going to dance and I'm going to have fun. Why would I do something that's not fun for me, right? That's very Leo in the 6th. Thank you so much, Leo in the 6th, Aquarius in the 12th house, folks. Now we are going to focus in on Virgo in the 6th and Pisces in the 12th house. Right, with this particular combination, you could very well have an Aries rising using the whole sign system. And I do want to highlight that I am not a health specialist, so I am simply guiding using astrology as a tool. Right. Let's firstly think about Virgo in the 6th. Well, this is where we notice that when it comes to your everyday habits and routines, there does need to be some type of order. You strive for order within the chaos. You strive to do things correctly, and you can be quite matter of fact. We see here that even when it comes to the job you do, the work you do, you can be quite meticulous, analytical, right? Maybe your role, your services, so the services you offer, really do require having to be detailed, having to look maybe for errors. Even accounting comes to mind here. Yeah, so working with numbers. I'm also thinking that you strive to be consistent with your routines and your health habits, things like that. However, this can also be where you refine such matters. So if there is a better strategy, if there's a better approach, if there's a better solution, you will be willing to make those changes. And I'm also thinking that with you having potentially an Aries rising, so like I said, you could have an Aries rising using the whole sign system. This is where we notice your ability to make something new happen, your ability to adjust yourself whenever the time is right. And you can be perhaps quite energetic people, quite active people. Still, to focus in on Virgo in the 6th again, I do think that you tend to pride yourself knowing that you are capable, right? Pride yourself in knowing that you have what it takes to get through your routines, your daily tasks, your responsibilities, and your obligations, so on and so forth. Physically, though, when we think about the physical body in this way, maybe this is where we want to be mindful of your digestive system. What I'm thinking even is slow down when you're eating. Yeah, especially if you have the Aries rising in combination, slow down when you're eating, because that could be a thing here where you try to rush through what you're eating because you want to get back to work, you want to get back to doing other things. So yeah, the digestive system is something to be mindful of. And I'm also going to say then from that, the pancreas and the intestines. So yeah, heavily focusing in on the digestive system when we consider Virgo in the 6th. Maybe you've even visited the doctor at times because of indigestion issues, things like that. And I'm also going to say that you do prefer to keep somewhat active. It's not to say that you're going to be active all the time, but I do think that you're health conscious. This is really what I'm getting from Virgo in the 6th. Health conscious. Okay, let's then think about Pisces in the 12th. So the spiritual body, the spiritual you, is very in tune with divinity, God, creation, right? This is about tuning in with what your spiritual beliefs, your spiritual practices are. And so I see this as you, for example, you could pray every night before you go to bed. You could read some type of religious text every day, or you might attend some kind of spiritual gathering with like minds. It could be a full moon ritual, a new moon ritual. Maybe you like to sign up to different spiritual courses. You like to be involved with people who you can connect with on a spiritual level. This is what the spiritual body is craving. This is what the spiritual body needs. I'm even thinking that what's important to you is getting enough sleep, getting enough rest, having those periods away from your phone, having those periods out in nature, periods when you can listen to music, you can properly just chill out and chill out and not have to worry about all of that everyday stuff. So indeed, this is what the spiritual body is looking for. And then I'm also thinking, because if you do have Aries on the rising, Aries risings are known for being the people who are out there doing things, pioneers, trailblazers, very active, very active. So Pisces in the 12th is trying to remind you to slow down, to rest, to recognize that recovery, healing, rest, reset, recharge, all of those things are needed, necessary if you are to continue getting out there in the world and doing all sorts of things, right? So rest and recovery basically is just as important as activity, just as important as the doing piece. Thank you so much, Virgo in the 6th house and Pisces in the 12th house. Now we're going to move on to Libra in the 6th house and Aries in the 12th house. So we're really switching the signs around this time. Okay, with this particular combination, then you could very well have a Taurus rising using the whole sign system. And I also want to highlight that I am not a health specialist. I'm simply using astrology as a guiding tool. Okay, let's firstly think about Libra in the 6th house. Well, this is where we notice the importance of healthy balance and equilibrium and harmony when it comes to your daily life, your daily practices, your routines. So I imagine this as you being able to sense whenever things are not in balance physically, right? When we think about the physical body here with the 6th house, stress levels come into this, right? So if, for example, you feel like your stress levels are at an all-time high, you may go, hold on a second, something isn't right. I need to change something. I need to adjust my skills, so to speak. Or it could be a case of, okay, you know what? I haven't really exercised that much this week, and that's a goal of mine. That's something that I want to do. I haven't committed to that. There we go. You may then adjust the scales and then make certain changes. We also see this as you possibly preferring some sugar, right? You could have a bit of a sweet tooth, to be honest. You could have a little sweet treat every day, okay? I know for me, that's what I do. And you know what? It is kind of funny to think about because if you do have a Taurus rising, Taurus is known for being indulgent, is known for being able to treat itself. So I'm thinking that with Libra, this other Venus ruled sign in your sixth, there is that ability to treat yourself on a daily basis. Naturally, this can also manifest as more so self-care, right? Self-care, maybe shopping. So you might, for instance, do some shopping once a week, and maybe that shopping involves a small treat for yourself, maybe a new item of clothing once a week. Maybe you like to go to the hair salon every few weeks, right? You like to get your fresh cut. You like to treat yourself to some nice new shampoos or conditioners, right? It's these self-care routines that can also show up through the sixth, but I'm especially thinking because it's Libra. Libra can look at that refinement, and then also there's that beauty aspect to Libra. Okay, the beauty aspect, I'm thinking even about certain makeup products, cosmetic products that you may treat yourself to. Still, when we do consider your physical body here, we want to be somewhat mindful of your kidneys, right? Because Libra rules the kidneys. So, yes, the kidneys and the bladder, even your your urinary system, right? And your senses. So there are those things to be somewhat mindful of when we consider the sixth house through a lens of health. Again, I'm not a health practitioner or anything, but these are the kinds of influences we see with Libra in the sixth. And you know what? You do also want to think about the whole chart, right? What's going on in your chart. But what I am also going to say is that when it comes even to your coworker relationships, you want to get on well with who you work with. And you can also notice any injustices, anything that's a bit off or shady. You can be really sensitive to that type of stuff. You might even be a part of the union or be a part of some like rule or area within your company, so that certain laws are made or certain regulations are put in place. Basically, you may very well call out anything that is not suitable, is not fair, is not just. Okay. Very much standing up for justice with Libra. And then I'm also going to say here that when it comes to your stress levels, like I was trying to mention, you may notice whenever you are super, super stressed, right? You can maybe feel that physically within your body. And then that's when maybe you do adjust. This is what I'm trying to get at with Libra. It's those adjustments of the scales, whether this be you adding onto the scales or taking away from those scales. But then we also notice with Aries in the 12th, Aries in the 12th is the spiritual body, and it's trying to teach you so much about asserting yourself. It's trying to teach you so much about your independence, about the things that you can do for yourself, right? Because I think even to an extent with the Libra influence in the sixth, there may be the people pleasing, oh, I need to cater to these other people over here. But Aries is trying to remind you that the spiritual body wants you to make yourself a priority from time to time as well. when it comes to the axis or the different axes within the chart, it is about balance, sure, but the spiritual you is here to think about, right, how can you direct your life? How can you lead your life? Right? Is there anything that you can do even behind the scenes as a way to support yourself, to come back to you, to come back to you? And I'm also thinking it's interesting because if you've got Taurus on the rising, Taurus risings are known for really considering, okay, well, what can I produce? Or how can I maybe make money? How can I consider my finances and my security in that way? More of those physical, tangible things. But Aries, I think, in the 12th is trying to remind you that you don't necessarily have to have a tangible product, or you don't necessarily have to do something to get something back. And there's that incentive. It's just more about, I'm doing it because I want to do it, right? I want to do it, so I'm going to do it. So this, I think, is a big part of your journey when we consider Aries in the 12th. Thank you so much, Libra in the 6th and Aries in the 12th. Now we are going to explore Scorpio in the 6th and Taurus in the 12th. Right, with this particular combination, you could have a Gemini rising using the whole sign system. And I want to highlight that I'm not a health specialist. I'm simply using astrology as a guiding tool. Okay. Right. Let's firstly consider, well, Scorpio in the 6th. Aren't you intense workers? You are the types of people who don't know how to stop working, possibly. You give it your all. Let's put it that way. But we also see the extremes. Okay, we see the extremes where you might go all in when it comes to a certain daily practice, a schedule, a routine. And you could keep up with that for a very long time. But then, hey, it could reach to a point where you go the complete opposite way. Okay, where you don't do that thing ever again, or you go through massive periods of not doing that thing. So it's very all or nothing. It's very black and white. And you may know this quite a bit about yourself. You may know that you can have this intense focus, but you also know that you can move away from whatever that routine or habit is just as much. So trying to find the kind of balance in that can be a bit of a challenge, honestly. But what I will say is that your passion is so admirable. It's your determination, it's your devotion. Though we also want to think about your health, right? Your health, your physical body with this. Because, I mean, for example, this could manifest as you reaching a breaking point, reaching a point where, like, physically your body, maybe it doesn't work the same way. It literally tries to signal to you, I'm shutting down, I'm shutting down, I'm shutting down. Right? There's the alarm bells that go off. And I'm just going to jump straight into Taurus in the 12th, honestly, with this one. I feel like I'm being directed there, guided there right now, because Taurus in the 12th is trying to signal the spiritual body wants you to feel more at ease, wants you to. But will you listen? Okay. Will you listen, or will you deny? Will you reject? Will you suppress? Scorpio, you see, can manifest as this. Scorpio can manifest as we can stuff things down. We can sort of deny, right? So this is where we really see this axis of health show up for you on such a profound level, where I'm thinking that a big part of Taurus in the 12th is about what is valuable to you, what's valuable to your body, what's valuable to your relaxation and your comforts. Maybe a healthier way of attending to the body, listening, tuning in, listening to your intuition. Now, don't get me wrong, right? This can also manifest, of course, as you having so much profound control, and you have actually that stamina. You could very well do. You could have the stamina, you could have the ability to move through life in a way where you're so focused and you're on it. Still, I'm thinking about what is also equally needed. It's being able to tune in with any overdrive, overload, overextension, and then you're burnt out. So I hope, I really hope I'm not being too hard on you here, but I can't help but think that this is how this energy can manifest. However, this is also where we see transformation, right? Because just as much, this can be about renewals tied to your physical body. Where in actuality, whenever you tune in, whenever maybe you soften a little bit, whenever you listen, then boom, it's almost like you allow for a piece of a routine, a previous way of showing up within the everyday. You allow for that to end. You go through a transformation. And then that within itself sets you out on this whole new health journey, deeper perspectives about health, deeper perspectives about the everyday, about work. And then that's also where you can share your wisdom. You can share your emotional wisdom with others. I'm even thinking here about possible, it could be possible power struggles or resistance to do with coworkers. And then you realizing, no, I cannot deal with that. So what you do is you set it up in such a way where the jobs you do, the services you provide, the roles you take on, so we think about work, they align with your ability to be in greater control. Not in a negative way, but more so from a place of, I know what my body can manage. I know my body. You get to such a point where you're so connected with your body, and it's so remarkable. Last thing I'm going to say here, though, is I'm thinking, because so if you have Gemini on the rising, basically, I am thinking that it's fascinating because Gemini is known for being quite changeable and adaptable. But yet what we see in actuality is that with these health houses, there's a stiffness, there's a stuckness. And so I am thinking that eventually maybe you come to learn that where you can truly grow is within areas related to your health. And that's where actually even a lot of your physical changes, right? The Gemini rising sign is very the body, the health, your health too, right? The rising sign can show our health. The first house can show health. But because you make those changes, it shows on your face, it shows in your appearance, right? So for example, you may be told, oh, you look so much younger because you cut out maybe a certain habit. You done away with a certain diet. You done away with a certain working experience. Or you might be told by others, oh, do you know what? You seem a lot lighter. Like you seem a lot more fresh, like yourself. And you think, thanks. Yeah, you know what? I've been really freaking struggling. And I made those changes. So anyway, I hope that was helpful. Scorpio in the 6th house, Taurus in the 12th house. Now we're going to move on to Sagittarius in the 6th house and Gemini in the 12th house. Right, so with this particular combination, you could very well have a Cancer rising using the whole sign system. And I do want to highlight here that I am not a health specialist, right? I'm simply guiding using astrology. Okay, firstly, let's consider Sagittarius in the 6th house. And what we notice here with Sagittarius in the 6th is, well, it's your ability to potentially go overboard when it comes to your everyday habits and routines. You can certainly overcommit. You can even overestimate exactly how much you can do in one given day. But hey, don't get me wrong, the ability to think about, okay, well, I can do all this, that is admirable, right? It's your ability to think positively or to even inspire others based on the types of things that you do on a daily basis. For example, this could be about a new diet or a new health routine or exercise routine, and you go all in. You go all in and you are optimistic about it, you're hopeful about it, you're able to think, right? You're able to think positively about this new routine and how far you can go with that routine. And then I'm also thinking at work. So if we were to think about work, your services here, coworker relationships, you may be seen by your coworkers as quite, could be happy-go-lucky, it could be joyous, like you always have a smile on your face. You are this delight to be around. You make other people around you feel invited, feel like they're a part of something bigger. You might showcase this optimism to your coworkers, to others you work with, that can, like I'm trying to say, it can inspire other people. So anytime maybe certain coworkers are feeling a bit down or low throughout the day, here you come in and you think, hey, like, what's going on with you? Let me offer you my advice, or let me offer you my support. Very interesting, because if you have a Cancer rising, Cancers are known for being very supportive people, but it seems like within the workplace here, this is coming from a really higher perspective, almost from this perspective of being able to see the bigger picture. Hey, that could be another thing, the bigger vision when it comes to, you think about, I can head it into the future in a way, right? And then you set your sights higher. And then you think of all the things you want to accomplish and the things that you can do. It's this whole notion of, yes, I can, yes, I can, yes, I can, right? And then that is really magnetic, actually. Though, let's be mindful here. We got to slow this down a little bit, because when we do consider your physical body with the 6th house, well, Jupiter, it tends to rule the metabolism and the immune system. So I'm thinking, hey, this could manifest as you reaching a point where you're getting the cold a lot, the flu a lot. Your immune system maybe isn't the best, maybe because even during times whenever you feel a little bit under the weather, you're like, I can still keep going, I've got to keep going, right? And don't get me wrong, if you have a Cancer rising with this combination, maybe you're thinking to yourself, this is for my family. Like, I have to do this. This is to support my family. This is to support my life. Of course, I'm going to have to do these things, right? So there is that. But I'm still getting at here with the 6th house, there could be those health concerns to do with your immune system. Also, like I said, your metabolism. So we want to be mindful maybe of hedonism, overindulgence, right? Because the 6th house to an extent can be about our diet, right? So this could be where maybe you are eating a lot or you're consuming a lot, and maybe a part of that is emotional, a part of that is because of stress. That's another thing. The 6th house is about stress. So with Jupiter there, that could expand your stress in a way. So again, we want to think about, okay, how can we maybe bring greater balance, or how can we bring the stress down a bit? And I'm also considering with Gemini. So Gemini in the 12th, maybe this is going to help us out. Gemini in the 12th could point toward how the spiritual self needs some kind of change, needs some kind of variety. Maybe Gemini in the 12th is more about, okay, Well, let me just take a moment and question, for example, about what I'm learning, what I'm doing, what is my path, what is my direction, how much am I doing on a daily basis? And maybe also a part of this is about communicating with someone else, right? So communicating your thoughts, just maybe getting your thoughts out, getting your words out, and that within itself could be potentially very healing. I even imagine this as you keeping a lot in, right? So you could keep a lot of thoughts in with Gemini in the 12th, keep it in, keep it in, keep it in. And then it could get to a point where you just want to explode. And to me, if you have a Cancer rising again, that's very Cancerian, right? Cancerians often don't want to burden other people with their emotions and their feelings, and they can keep things within. And in actuality, we see here for you that you can be major worriers, overthinkers, constantly trying to sort of figure things out in your mind. But in a similar way, what I'm trying to get at here is this is about being able to lighten the load. Could even be a case of needing some time to yourself and to consider more of this lightheartedness, this play, right? Getting back to this place of innocence, so to speak, whenever it does feel like everything is just piling on top of you in life. Or maybe it is about reaching out to someone and they can listen, or they can literally be there to show you support like you show them support. Or you know what, perhaps the spiritual body is also trying to communicate. Journal, watch television, escape a little bit through books, reading, anything maybe to take your mind off things. Okay, this is where we see the need to relax the mind, to go within, and to also possibly notice any reoccurring thoughts that keep coming up, right? Because that could be another thing where you notice that you're caught in a certain loop, a certain cycle, right? Something that's quite repetitive. And then again, this is about maybe speaking about that or talking things over. Your mental health, I think, is a big part of this, with especially Gemini in the 12th. Thank you so much, Sagittarius in the 6th, Gemini in the 12th, folks. Okay, now we're going to talk about Capricorn in the 12th, Capricorn in the 6th, and then Cancer in the 12th. You could very well have a Leo rising with this combination, and that's using the whole sign system. And I'm also going to say that I'm not a health specialist. I'm simply using astrology as a tool. Right. Let's think about, firstly, Capricorn in the 6th. Well, this is where we notice the sheer determination and dedication on your part when it comes to your habits and your everyday routines. This is where we notice responsibility and you rising to the occasion time and time again. This is where we notice you being an authority of some kind as well when it comes to your work, your services. Even I'm thinking when it comes to coworker relationships, you might play this role of being the authority. You could be the manager, you could be the boss, and even if you're not the manager or the boss, you still might try to step in as if you are. I'm also considering here that as you do mature, as you age and grow, this is where we see you truly getting the most out of your productivity, your everyday habits, and also your health. Following on from this point, if we were to think about your physical body being shown up in this 6th house area, maybe we see some limitations when it comes to your physical body, especially during your younger years. So I imagine this, for example, as issues maybe with your bones. That could be a thing. Maybe issues with your joints, right? Bones, joints. Maybe even, especially during your younger years, you could have felt restricted. You could have felt quite stiff or confined. Or maybe there was some sort of limitation that blocked you from being able to move the way you wanted, eat the way you wanted, exercise the way you wanted, right? These are different possibilities. But I'm also thinking that with, like I'm trying to get at, with age and maturity, with growth, you may come to a point where you grow in your strength, right? You grow in your strength, very resilient. You may even be the types of people who, when you decide, right, I am going to start this diet, I am going to start this exercise routine, you're so on it, right? The thing about Capricorn, Saturnian influences is it's more than motivation, right? Mars is motivation. Saturn is discipline. There's a big difference. So this is about being disciplined. However, we also want to be somewhat mindful of control, because this can also manifest as controlling your diet, controlling what you put into your body, but to such an extent that actually you're not doing yourself any favors. You're actually acting in a way that's against your body. Again, this is all a learning process. And so you may find that this is a slow thing. You could go through massive periods of, I'm sticking to this routine, I'm sticking to it. And then it could get to a point where you think, it's not working for me anymore. It's not working. And maybe it is starting to impact you, possibly in a negative way. It could manifest as that. And then you might go to someone who does know what they're talking about. Maybe you prefer to go to professionals, you prefer to go to people who are qualified, who are trained, and then they can support you. They can give you the best sort of strategy moving forward. Of course, this is going to depend on the whole chart. I mean, there is that generation who were born with Uranus and Neptune in the 6th house, so in Capricorn. So it's going to change things. It is. But this is what we see with Capricorn in the 6th. Plus, I'm thinking if you have a Leo rising with this combination, right? With the Leo rising combination, this is about you directing your own path, right? You taking the lead, and you possibly even thinking to yourself, you know what? I know more than the experts. I don't need the advice from the experts. I'm qualified because I know who I am. I know my body. Right? This could be a possible manifestation of this, but it can also be the other way of this, where you think, I want the best of the best care. I want the best of the best healthcare. So yeah, I'm going to go to that doctor, that practitioner, because they know what they're talking about. And so because I want the best of the best, I'm going to go to them. Now, let's think about Cancer in the 12th house, the spiritual body. The spiritual body is so emotional. It is wanting you to tune in with your feelings, with how you truly feel deep down about your life, about your direction, about what you want, about what's uncomfortable, about what maybe no longer aligns with you. There is this type of support that is truly ushered in through Cancer in the 12th. It's emotional support. It's emotional wisdom. This could be, for example, emotional wisdom that's passed down through generations, maybe through your family. And then it's sort of this question of, maybe should I just listen to my parents? Should I have just listened to my mom? Like maybe she knew actually the best way forward for what was really needed in my life, or and I'm talking about health, right? I'm talking about health. And so there could be a few remedies or a few methods that you could pick up from your parents. Could be your mom, could be your father, right? So this is what we see. And I'm also going to say here that whenever you are able to reflect, because that can happen with Capricorn in the 12th, in the 6th, where it's on to the next thing. Okay, next goal. Oh, I've reached that goal. Next goal. And then physically, you may find that you're not really giving yourself enough time to properly process and to really sit with how you truly feel here. Does this really align with me? Is it truly connecting with me emotionally? here, spiritually speaking. So I'm thinking Cancer in the 12th also offers you some guidance about healthy self-reflection. Thank you so much, Capricorn in the 6th house, Cancer in the 12th house, folks. Now we are going to talk about Aquarius in the 6th house and Leo in the 12th house. So you could very well have a Virgo rising with this combination using the whole sign system. And I also want to highlight that I am not a health practitioner. This is me using astrology as a guide. Plus, I want to highlight that this is the combination that I possess. So I will talk about myself in some ways too, just to share my experiences with this. Right, let's think firstly about Aquarius in the 6th house. Well, this is where we notice, for example, how you can get these big bursts of energy, surges of energy that happen throughout the day, throughout the week, throughout the month, and they can be quite unpredictable. And when those surges of energy occur, you may feel like, yes, got this, I'm on top of the world, I can get through all of my daily tasks and my responsibilities. But whenever there is not that big surge of energy, and maybe things are not as they're not as exciting, for example, they're not as inspirational, for example, well, during those times you may feel a bit like, oh, right, like why is this not moving? Am I doing something wrong? Is this me? Is this my problem? But I'm thinking that this is just how this is showing up physically. And then I'm also thinking that when it comes to your routines, your everyday habits, you can be quite unpredictable. And you may prefer that, right? You may prefer it where you can maybe create your own schedule. There's that freedom piece with Aquarius in the 6th house. So you can plan your day the way you want to plan it. You have a say in it. And so you might align yourself with jobs where you can do that. So this could literally be you working for yourself. This could be working for a company or an organization, but you go in with this timeline in mind, with your own sort of schedules in mind. Even whenever you are working with other people, you're not the types of people who like to be watched, or it's almost like, bosses who watch over your shoulder, watching every single little thing you do. You really dislike that. And then that is interesting to me because if you have a Virgo rising, you can be very particular about the way you want to do things, and other people trying to manage you, micromanage you, it can feel like a big no. In actuality, it may be you that prefers to micromanage other people, right? You can see what needs to be fixed or changed or refined or improved. And so you may think that you have all the answers. And that could also be a manifestation of Aquarius in the 6th, sort of seeing things more from this bird's eye view, right? You can see what every moving part is doing. And so because of that systematic view, you can see how things need to be shifted, right? You can see how things need to change. And hey, with Aquarius, there can be that whole thing of being a know-it-all. That is also further extended with having a Virgo rising, if you have a Virgo rising. Now, having said that, okay, let's think about your physical body. Let's think about your health, because we do want to be mindful. We want to be mindful because there could be some issues to do with, for example, the ankles, the calves, the shins. Aquarius rules these body parts, these areas. And I'm going to share a quick little story. It's very quick. I recently got into shuffle dancing the past few weeks, and my ankles, I got tendonitis in my heels, right? And just my ankle area, awful. Could barely move for a few weeks. So that's an interesting one. I have Saturn in Aquarius, so that was a hard lesson for me, and also a reminder that I need to stretch, I need to warm up even when I'm doing shuffle dancing. I usually do that with other exercises, but I didn't do it for that. Anyway, lesson learned, hopefully. Be mindful. Be mindful of your ankles, your shins, your calves. And we want to think about the circulatory system here. We want to even think about, then in this regard, the blood flow. We want to think about your activity and your stress levels. Because I am thinking that you can get so stressed, and that shows even when it comes to your nerves, when it comes to your mind. You can get yourself into a tizzy with this Aquarius in the 6th house, and you can reach this mental burnout, right? Mentally, it's just a lot. It can feel like this compression in the mind, so many things, so many projects, so many ideas. And then you may just want to explode, or you could reach a breaking point. But I'm thinking this is further where we see breakthroughs, right? Aquarius is about breakthroughs. So I'm also going to go to how, sure, those matters can happen, but there may be this process that you experience. So almost like you are being a scientist or you're experimenting. So you can experiment with different tasks or responsibilities or routines where you refine things. You go, oh, okay, well, I've noticed that doing it in this sequence, doing it in this way, I'm feeling this way about it, or my mind, it's too much. So you can adjust. Very much a Virgo thing too, by the way, if you've got a Virgo rising. Virgo risings are known about refinement, okay? Refining. It's about improving. So this is how you could refine your skills with the 6th house. It's seeing the sequence, the order in which you do things, and then being able to change things about, and then making things more efficient and effective for you, for the practice, for wherever you work. Okay, Leo in the 12th. Let's explore your spiritual body. The spiritual body here, oh my goodness, the spiritual body wants to tell you something about joy, fun, play, spontaneity. The spiritual body wants you to let go by being able to just be kind of fun and playful from time to time, to not take yourself super seriously. Virgo risings, got a Virgo rising? Yeah, very much about your work, very much about your skills and what you can do, right? This is a lot about what you do, how you help others. But Leo in the 12th says, what brings you joy just for the sake of joy? What lights you up within? And it doesn't have to be about trying to improve the world. It doesn't have to be about even making a difference, or it doesn't have to involve loads of people all the time, where you're helping people, you're being of service to people. It's sort of as if it's a message to say, come back to your individuality. What's the ego trying to get here in a healthy way? Or what is your heart trying to say? Oh yes, this is about connecting with your inner child, your childlikeness, which is fascinating to me because the Virgo rising influence can be so concerned about so Virgo risings can be so concerned about how they appear, right? Appearing as helpful, put together as good. But Leo says there is a childlikeness within you waiting to come out if you would let it. And then also connecting with creativity. And it is interesting because often, and I know this is certainly true for me, but Virgo risings, when they're alone, they like to dance, they like to party, they like to sing, they like to be quite goofy, they like to entertain themselves, paint, right? They can be so creative and very expressive, especially whenever they're so comfortable with others. There is that self-expression that really shines through, it comes out. But still, this is what the spiritual body is trying to communicate, right? The spiritual body with Leo in the 12th, it is about self-expression. It is about shining your light and allowing for those moments to occur. Thank you so much, Aquarius in the 6th and Leo in the 12th. Lastly, then, we are going to talk about Pisces in the 6th and Virgo in the 12th. All right, so with this particular combination, you could very well have a Libra rising using the whole sign system. And I also want to highlight that I am not a health practitioner. I am simply guiding using astrology. Right. Firstly, let's think about Pisces in the 6th house. When it comes to your everyday habits and routines, there's something here about you really getting lost within them. So, what I mean by this, for example, this can manifest in many ways. This can manifest as you following a stream of consciousness when it comes to your routines and habits. This can manifest as you really connecting with a particular role or job, and it almost becomes a part of you. It's almost like you can merge with that role, with that title. Also, this could manifest as you maybe losing a part of yourself or who you are within the everyday, such as things feeling overwhelming, things feeling difficult to keep up with, or feeling like you are super obligated to get on with your everyday tasks and responsibilities, even though you feel deep down like you maybe need to rest. You need to rest, you need to recharge, you need to take a nap. So this could also manifest then as, hopefully from a spiritual perspective, right? It's quite interesting here because Pisces is a spiritual sign within itself, right? But from a spiritual perspective, this is about being able to be honest with yourself about your physical body, about what your physical body is capable of. See, what I get from this to an extent is many of you can act like you are invincible. Invincible, like you can take on anything and you don't need to worry about your body, right? But in actuality, you do. And then I'm also thinking over the past couple of years, right, as Saturn traveled through Pisces, so that was from March 2023 until 2025. Saturn will go back into Pisces throughout 2025, just to be clear. But I'm thinking over those years, maybe you have experienced major wake-up calls. Maybe you have been faced with responsibilities, and those responsibilities are about knowing your limitations, knowing what you actually are capable of on a daily basis. Having said that, we also notice the amount of compassion that you hold, that you have for others. We notice even the spiritual connection that you form with the services you may offer, or we notice the healing that you bring to coworkers, to colleagues, people you work with, right? We notice the care, essentially, the amount of care and love that you pour into what you do. And that is really, really admirable. Now, when we do further think about your physical body, then we want to be mindful of the feet. Okay, so there could be some maybe concerns about the feet. And then I'm also thinking the immune system. So it's also a Jupiter ruled 6th house, similar to Sagittarius in the 6th house, right? We talked about that with Sagittarius in the 6th house. With Jupiter here also partly ruling the 6th house arena, the immune system is to be cautious basically of your immune system, right? So for example, this could manifest as you getting sick quite often because of how much you're doing, because of how much you're playing this role of being invincible, sort of being immortal is what I'm getting with this. And having said that, this could be where you get yourself into such a healthy state, where your immune system is really strong because all of your ability to look after yourself, right? Now, with that in mind, it's interesting because if you've got Libra on the rising, Libras are all about balance. Libra is the archetype of equilibrium. So it's almost like through Pisces in the 6th, you come to learn so much about what your balance levels are, about what your physical condition is, about what your body needs. Even the first house is about the body. It's about our physical condition. It's linked to our health, our vitality as well, just to be very clear there. Now, as for this Virgo in the 12th house, this is where we notice how the spiritual body is about discernment. The spiritual body wants you to practice healthy discernment. And I'm going to be honest, there may be many people out there who do not listen to this. I have seen this within my own life, people with this axis, they don't listen to this. But actually, the Virgo in the 12th invites healthy discretion, discernment, being able to analyze if something is healthy, not healthy, maybe seeing in which ways you connect with a certain practice, a certain method, letting that sort of sit with you, right? It's all about almost taking in whatever it is and tasting it. This is more hypothetically, sort of tasting it, seeing does it need anything else added, and again, I think this sort of speaks to that Libra rising influence. It's that whole thing with Libra rising of adding to the scales, taking away from the scales. You mix in Virgo there in the 12th, there is that refinement, there is that stripping away, right? The health stuff. Okay, I'm going to be health conscious. The Virgo in the 12th says, be health conscious. Be mindful of how you really are showing up for your body, what your body needs. And when we circle this back then to health itself through the 6th house, yeah, this also ties in again with this, with spirit, with spirituality, spiritual practices, spiritual methods. Oh yeah, I think spiritual methods and practices in your life are pretty massive for you when we consider this health axis. Thank you so much, Pisces in the 6th house, Virgo in the 12th house individuals. And with that being said, this has been today's video all about the 6th house, 12th house axis in your chart. We have went through all of the signs. I do want to say thank you so much for listening. Thank you for watching. If you would like to book a reading with me, you can visit my website, hannahselsewhere.com. If you benefited from today's video, you can always buy me a coffee. And make sure to subscribe for more if you haven't already. There is a lot to come to the channel. Very excited about it. And give the video a like if you did like it today. With all of that being said, that is me, and I will talk to you all in the next video. Thank you so much. Bye.